well, nuclear deterrence and nuclear disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation. All these issues are interrelated, and of course, I think that we have very many views to this thing, and they're very different. And I want to share some thoughts about this topic from my maybe view of the representative of non-nuclear weapon state. In summary, what can I say? That nuclear weapon states, they still consider the concept of nuclear deterrence as the main part of their defense doctrine. And this is the fact. And we can see that practically all the states are using this type of weapons as a main weapon system in a case of some maybe difficulties in international relations. And then we had nuclear non-proliferation treaty. That is the one, maybe the only one treaty that works very well in the field of well, fighting the nuclear arms race. It stopped in the time when it was adopted. It stopped the rise of nuclear arms race, and the intention was to move the world towards the nuclear disarmament. And of course, there are some problems with this treaty, that it works well, but existing asymmetry of NPT and absence of tangible progress in nuclear disarmament based on Article 6 of NPT. It's a well-known article. And then we have threat of use of nuclear weapons. All these things give ground for militarization of nuclear programs in some countries, in some states. And I think that there is a need to more active actions in order to push forward development of international instruments comprising missing components of nuclear disarmament environment. So, of course, it's the move from the legal point, and there should be some additional actions in the international relations that will give us the possibility to get more strict atmosphere for nuclear disarmament. Well, we have some risks related to nuclear weapon states. It's P5 of NPT and 4 states. Before it was 3 states out of NPT, but North Korea joined this group of states that are developing nuclear weapon programs. And in these countries, they use the nuclear weapons as a main component of their defense doctrine and use this concept of nuclear deterrence. And this position is somehow supported by the International Convention on Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism. As I know, the convention was drafted by Russian Federation. It's a nuclear weapon state. And there is the Article 4 on the in this article we have this statement: the convention does not address, and nor can it be interpreted addressing in any way the use of the issue of the legality of use of or threat of use of nuclear weapons by states. So I can understand that this convention was developed for suppression of subnational moves or subnational groups trying to use some nuclear devices. But you can interpret this article as the basis of legality of use of nuclear weapons by a state, but by states that have this weapon. And understanding of this statement is the legality of use of nuclear weapons by states and acceptance of this threat by the convention parties along with the acceptance of exceptional position of P5 states by the international community, give ground for further speculations on the necessity of keeping nuclear weapon programs. So I think that we should be a little bit more careful when we are signing this kind of conventions. Kazakhstan also signed the convention and ratified the convention. So it means that we agree that some state having a nuclear weapon can use this nuclear weapon against us. It's a little bit ridiculous. Well, and several times I was trying to discuss this point with our colleagues from different countries, and it seems that nobody thought that this statement can be used by some countries in order to legalize the threat of using of nuclear weapons, as it is being done recently by one of the countries of P5.
Excuse me, Timur.
Yeah.
We're still on the first slide. Is that how you're seeing it on your screen?
I'm on the third slide. Okay. Does it work?
No. Are you using two screens by any chance?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to view your other screen, maybe?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Ah, that's better, yes.
Yeah, it works now.
And summary.
And
It's
if I may,
nuclear risks.
now I see that the International Convention for the Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism, Article 4, says this and this. So this is what you were having in mind when you talked about this exclusion clause for nuclear
Yes.
use, sort of.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's nuclear risks. So we have the main risk is that the states having the nuclear weapons, so they are not going to disarm, and they are threatening others, and it gives the ground for different countries that are going to be closer to development of nuclear weapon. So this is one of the main risks. If we'll see how this nuclear deterrence costs for countries, this is the data that was collected by SIPRI, Swedish Institute for Peace Investigations, like this. So we can see that now the estimate is that now we have about more than 13,000 warheads all over the world, and the cost of nuclear weapon programs exceeds $72 billion. That means that $137.66 are being spent at a minute for the nuclear weapon programs. And here is the most weaponized countries. We can see that Russia, US, they have the most number of warheads, but the expenditure of US is much more than the expenditure of other countries. We have several international legal instruments that are not working now. For example, the CTBT. This treaty was aimed to prevent the development of new nuclear weapons systems and or modernization of nuclear weapons. So without the testing, of course, without making the natural test of nuclear devices, you cannot develop your nuclear weapon systems. But the problem of the treaty is connected to the mechanism of enforcement of this treaty. When several states with special position can block the intention of the most part of the treaty parties to enforce this document. So we can see that a nuclear weapon state that is responsible for this delay of entering into force of this treaty is still have some, I don't know, some unclear position. Will it enforce it or not? I don't know. Of course, I had discussions with my colleagues when I was working in the Committee of Atomic Energy from this country, from different countries, and they said that they have intention to, for example, United States, they have intention to ratify it, but they have to estimate the consequences of this ratification. Once it was the positive decision of the experts, but then they have again the negative decision that the ratification of this treaty will negatively influence to the defense resources or defense possibilities of a state. So again, they have this discussion. So I don't know when the discussion will be ended. Then this recent treaty on prohibition of nuclear weapons. Of course, it's the first treaty that gives the legal basis for prohibition of development or use of nuclear weapons. So, but the problem of this treaty is that in this treaty, the nuclear weapon possessing states are not taking part. So without them, the TPNW seems to be the have no result, or have no, it will not work as well as it was expected. One of the long discussing treaties is the Cutoff Treaty, fissile materials Cutoff Treaty. As I know, the idea of this treaty came at the very beginning of the nuclear weapon race, when people discussed the NPT and other possible treaties. And one of the treaties was this fissile material Cutoff Treaty. But still it is under discussion. Maybe the progress of the discussion of approaches, not the treaty, but approaches to the treaty, have some additional difficulties because this treaty is being discussed or considered in the conference on disarmament. And this conference, they have the rule of consensus. And in order to take a step, all the countries taking part in the conference, they have to give the positive decision. Only one country can block all the work, as it happens with the Cutoff Treaty. The treaty is maybe important because it provides a legal mechanism for suppression of further development nuclear weapon programs and gradual elimination of the nuclear arsenals. Because if we'll stop production of fissile materials for the nuclear weapons, so it means that the nuclear weapons will be step by step the number of because by the nature of these weapons, because the material should be refreshed time to time, and if the new material will not come into the weapon program, it means that the nuclear weapons will be shrinked. And technically, it seems that, for example, the model of black box can be applied. There are many discussions, but for example, if we'll take the approach that the existing weapons and nuclear materials that are in the nuclear weapon program can be considered as fixed in a black box. Why? Because the countries having nuclear weapons, they say that this is a top secret. The content of nuclear weapons, nuclear warheads, nuclear material itself, the composition of nuclear material in the weapon is secret. So, okay, international community cannot be cannot get the information about this material. Okay, then we can close it in black box. But the remaining nuclear material and facilities can be safeguarded under the voluntary offer agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency under NPT. So the problem is with this P5 and non-NPT countries possessing nuclear weapons. They do not want to move to this treaty. Also, 5 countries, they gave their guarantees that they are not producing, that they are not fabricating new material for the nuclear weapons. There are 5 statements in the UN, I don't know, assembly or what, documents that they presented to the United Nations, that they are not producing nuclear material for the nuclear weapons. So it seems that it is easy to get the agreement with the Cutoff Treaty, but in reality, there is no move still. Nuclear non-proliferation treaty, everybody knows this Article 6, that each parties to the treaty should undertake the effective measures relating to cessation of nuclear race and move to nuclear disarmament. But still we have no progress in nuclear disarmament. We have to say that the NPT gives a financial, commercial, and technical burden to non-nuclear weapon states connected to application of comprehensive safeguards. Being in the country, for example, Kazakhstan, we signed all the documents related to safeguards, and comprehensive safeguards means that we have to declare to open to the International Atomic Energy Agency all our plants 10 years ahead. For example, when we are talking about the construction of nuclear power plant, we have to give the detailed information about the plant to the International Atomic Energy Agency. It means that if we have some, Kazakhstan now have no problem with the commercial side, from the commercial side, but some countries, they have problems when they are developing their own commercial products. Everything is open, and they have this disadvantage of opening of their plants, of their researches, results, and so on. When the P5 countries, they do not open all their researches, all their plants, and this gives the unequal position of the international nuclear market. Also, this is one of the negative factors of NPT. And if we'll go to the building the international non-proliferation environment and moving towards the nuclear disarmament, we can talk about the several treaties like NPT, TPNU, and blue ones that are waiting for enforcement, CTBT and FMCT, plus IAEA safeguard system. This will give us more or less the environment that provides move towards the nuclear disarmament. So more active actions of international community are vital for move in nuclear disarmament.